Okay, we're back. So before the break, we started diving into the guts of the Java code for our GWT application. And so we saw that when your application starts up, or really where like the generated JavaScript starts, is here in your entry point class, your appointment book GWT class, and it's just Java. And we talked about what happens when you create a button. So you have a button and it's got a click handler that is code that is invoked when the button is clicked. And we saw how to use the asynchronous remote method calls with GWT. And so you have this whole interface and implementation on the server side, and on the client side you get this async object that allows you to call methods of the object on the server side of your service object. But the calling protocol, the calling convention, is a little different. Instead of just invoking the method and waiting for that method to return to get the result, instead you have to make this asynchronous call, which basically says, hey, please go call that method, and when that method returns, deliver the result, either the successful object returned by that method, or if there was an exception thrown, please deliver one of those things back to this async callback object, and I will handle it appropriately by implementing these methods. We also saw how there are only certain classes that you can use in your client code. There's a lot of them. You can probably do everything you need to do, but we saw how you couldn't use the date format from the symbol date format from the Java text package. Instead, you need to use GWT's. Let's see here, GWT's datetime format class. I realized there was one very important detail that I didn't cover, and we should cover that now. So we created this widget, we created the button, and we registered all these event handlers and to do stuff, but we never really did anything to display it. And so if you go back, and so you display it, and not so much you display it as you add it to the UI. You do that here in the on module load. So on module load is like the starting point for your UI, and what do? Well, you get something called the root panel. The root panel represents, well, the web page. It represents, it's a Java object, it's a GWT object that represents the basically the web page right here. And then you simply call add on that root panel with the button. So that's sort of the final step, and a very important final step, because you don't do that, you won't see anything. That adds your object to your UI. Yes, question?
Curiosity, did they base this off of Swing, or try and...
It is, I would say it's inspired by Swing. So if you've done any sort of Swing or AWT, okay, sorry, that was a long time back in the RC. So the original UI API in Java was called AWT, and then Swing is a lighter weight implementation. Now there's something called Java FX, which I don't think anybody uses, but anyway, is really who writes thick applications anymore, or applets anyway. But yes, the concepts are very similar. I think someone was saying that they've maybe done a little bit of UI programming, a little bit of Swing programming in one of their classes. If you've done that, then hopefully this is kind of similar in that you have Java objects, a class hierarchy of objects that represent widgets, and you have a class hierarchy that represents containers, things that can hold other widgets, and those specify algorithms for laying out, and then you have events that you handle. So yes, it's I think that was sort of the hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And remember, as I said last time, I think Google's reasoning behind GWT was, we've got a bunch of Java programmers. There are all these Java programmers out there all over the world, and it's Google. They wanted to have, they had people all over the world. You can go read books on things like GWT Swing to understand, these concepts. Let's just follow them. So I think that's why they did it. Yeah.
Was that button in an iframe, or was there just a little iframe?
There is, yeah. The iframe actually holds like all this magical JavaScript, and so.
Is that just because of the plugin that you're using for live compilation, or are iframes involved in the actual production code as well? I guess it's just like So if we wanted to like just add a class to the button or something, then we just do that right in like the constructor where we create.
Yeah. So let's see here. Do I have an example of it? I think I'll show you one next week.
Okay.
There's like an add class method or something on the button. How do we do that? I don't want to do it there. Oh, I can do it here. I can say, sorry. I can say like, yeah, button.add class. No. Class get no. Style. It's been so long. Yeah, add style name, and that's how you basically add CSS to it. I'll read up on it and have a more competent example next week. Okay. So this is cool. So now we understand all the pieces parts involved in creating this UI. You got to create your widgets. You got to register your event listeners, and you've got to add your widgets to some container. Now let's do some stuff here. Let's add some things to see what it's like to actually develop in this. Because this isn't a terribly interesting UI. Here's what I'm going to do. I want to add a text field, and in that text field I want to be able to enter a number, and that will be the number of appointments that I add to my appointment book. Okay, so let's figure out how to do that. Let's go front to back. Let's add it to the UI first. So the next thing I need is I'm going to add a button, and then I'm going to add a text field. I'm going to call it text field. That's not a very good name, but I'm not feeling very creative right now. Create a field, text field. It's not a widget. It's a text field. Crap. Was it? Sorry, text box is what it's called in GWT, so I will rename it text box. I'll never remember that. Text box. Okay. No one visible for testing. Oh, you know what? No, I think this will be. I haven't told you about all the neat ways that you can test your GWT application yet. And maybe I should do that before I start messing with the GWT application. Sorry. Okay, I'll try to be brief. There we go. Revert that to. Okay. So, testing web applications as back in the old days was a real pain. Before sort of good patterns were established, before people really understood about REST, it was really messy. And so, you had things like JUnit and pre-decent unit testing practices for your server-side code. But what about your JavaScript code? Oh, it doesn't matter. JavaScript's just like really toy, isn't a real language anyway. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Oh, that's just the UI. That doesn't need to be tested. Right? Bad. Wrong. And one of the things that GWT wanted to be from the beginning was testable. So, and that means that your UI logic, that everything involved here on your client side should be testable. Now, if it's just sort of like plain old Java code, then it can be tested, right? So if it's just like logic, if you're, what would be a good example? Oh, I don't know. So let's say that you've got like validation logic or something. It's like, okay, if this checkbox is checked and then this thing is this value, right? You can refactor things so that's really easily testable. You can use JUnit for that. And we do have stuff like that. That's just server-side code. Sorry. I don't have a good example of it here, but you can do that. Obviously, you can have server-side code that just tests your service, and you can just do things like, create this new service symbol, call the ping, and make sure that it returns one appointment. Yay! Nothing big or interesting there. So if you've just got plain old straight up Java code that really doesn't do anything with the GWT APIs, great. But what if you've got Java code that does deal with the APIs? I mean, if you try to run your main class out just as Java code and don't compile into JavaScript, what does things like creating a new button do? What are you supposed to do there? What does calling GWT create do outside of the JavaScript? Right? And it's like, how is that supposed to work? Well, luckily, there is there's a way to do that. There's a way to write integration tests for your GWT application. What these integration tests do is they run your application in a sort of simulated environment that allows you to call methods like GWT create and do things like create buttons and interact with them. But you do this all in Java code. And so then you have an appointment book IT, an appointment book integration test, which extends GWT test case. A GWT test case is a GWT class that uses JUnit 3 style. Right, it uses JUnit 3 style conventions, which means that all your test methods have to begin with test. Okay, it's 1999, not 2009, but okay. Anyway, but you can still annotate them with @test. It'll still be okay. And anyway, and so what you can do in these is the test is the following. You can say, hey, create my. What this does is, hey, clicking a button alerts with appointment information. This is my end-to-end test. And so you can say, hey, create me my appointment book UI. In this, there's a peculiarity about GWT test case that I had to work around here. Namely, you can't get, if you do a JavaScript alert, you can't get access to that. Kind of dumb. So in order to make it testable, I had to introduce this constructor that takes something called an alerter. That's my own class, and the alerter is the interface, the thing that gets the alert method that you use when you alert on something. So if I go to that alert method that I added here, I call alert.alert, and I send it to string. And what this really does is it just uses this implementation of this interface that in the real world is implemented by this thing, which actually calls window.alert. That'll use the JavaScript alert. So when it's compiled and run, this is the constructor that's invoked, and so you send it an alerter that'll pop the JavaScript alert. But for testing, go look for uses of this. Oops. Right. But in when you test, you use what as test object is capturing an alerter, which implements that alerter interface, which basically saves the alert message off to a string, so then I can then verify it. So one of the things you'll notice about this appointment book GWT class is that sprinkled throughout it are all these visible for testing annotations, and that's a hint to you, the reader of the code, to say, hey, the reason that we have this constructor is that it makes it easier to test. And the reason that we have this alerter interface is that it makes it easier to test, which is an important thing in testing, where you want your code to be testable. And it's absolutely all right to like refactor out certain things to make it easier to test. And we've seen it before, where I've made certain methods that were that could be private, package protected, package local, so that they can be tested, so they can be accessed. Anyway, I do that here with GWT also. So here's my test. What do? I create my appointment book GWT object. I have a method here that simulates clicking on a button. I had to like use some crazy GWT APIs to do that. But then once I do, you click the button, and remember, clicking the button makes one of these asynchronous calls. So now in my test code, I have to deal with that asynchrony by doing the following. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to do the following. I'll create something called a timer, and a timer is a GWT class that basically will poll that you can tell it to poll like every, here it is, 500 milliseconds, and wait for something to happen. So like every 500 milliseconds, it's going to call this run method, which will say, hey, give me the message that was delivered to my alerter, assert that it was not null, assert that it contains this string that I expected, and then say, yay, the test is finished. If any of these assertions fail, it's okay. Right, it's okay. Sorry. So the run method will be invoked. it might be that the RPC method hasn't called yet. Nothing's been delivered to the iterator, or sorry, to the alerter. In which case, you'll get an assertion error exception. What I tell the test to do is I say, hey, go check every 500 milliseconds for it for call the run method every 500 milliseconds, and then say, hey, wait up to 1,000 milliseconds for this test to pass. I think I did a horrible job explaining that. Let me try it again. So, when you click the button, what clicking the button does, makes this asynchronous call off to the server. This code isn't asynchronous, but it needs to deal with the asynchrony, right? We want our tests to be kind of straight line, to be able to read through it. So let me collapse that. What do? We create this thing called a timer, which is verifies that, yes, verify that the test is passed. I'm going to say, hey, go off and schedule this timer to go and run that run method every 500 milliseconds. And this basically says, hey, wait 1,000 milliseconds for the wait 1,000 milliseconds for like the verify to do its thing. What does the verify do? Again, this is the thing that alerts on that will check to see whether or not whether or not the test has passed, whether or not the remote procedure call has come in.
So will finish test stop or interrupt delay test finish?
It's the other way around. Thank you. Now I'm remembering this. Like I said, my brain's on it tonight. Finish test will set state that says, oh yes, the test passed successfully. It was finished. And this is what you do. You basically wait 1,000 milliseconds for finish test to be called. Thank you. So, one more time with feeling. This goes off and says, hey, go execute this run method every 500 milliseconds. And this says, hey, wait up to 1,000 milliseconds for finish test to be called. And so what you're doing is, so it runs here. So every 500 milliseconds, go call the run method. So it'll go and say, hey, has my alerter gotten a message delivered to it yet? Okay, give me that thing. Hey, I expect it to be null. If it's not null, blow up. That's okay. It'll try again in 500 milliseconds. This thing will say, hey, wait for up to 1,000 milliseconds, 1 second, for finish test to be invoked. And finish test will be invoked once both of those assertions pass. It's a different way of writing automated tests, integration tests, but it's what you have to do when you've got asynchronous code. There's really no other way around it. But this provides a very important test of functionality, right? This is the integration test that you want. You want to be able to exercise your UI doing what it's doing, having both the client and the server there and everybody talking to each other. Is what an integration test is for. Anyway, I don't know if it's something that you can really leverage in your project, but I wanted to show you that it can be done. So for those of you that are test infected, that really want to either do test-driven development or make sure that you've got automated tests, you can do that. Okay. The other test. Oops. So this test, what it does is it stands up your UI and invokes your UI. There is another integration test that I wrote, which allows you to write integration tests against your service directly. So remember, your service is this remote object that's living there in your server, and you use the magical GWT create in your JavaScript code or code that gets compiled into JavaScript to get an async object you can go and call it. There's this library called GWT proxy sync. What is it called? Sync proxy. GWT sync proxy that you can use to write these integration tests that work against your service directly. So here I have, here's my web app URL, and I can make sure that I can ping it. And then I can call, here's what I can do. I can use, instead of saying GWT create, which only works in the JavaScript, compiled JavaScript, I can use this create proxy dot create sync which will take the service, and instead of returning an async, because that's just really kind of awkward to work with, it just calls it directly and will wait for it to return. This is all test code, and this is actually a third-party library that wasn't developed by GWT people, it was developed by other people. But anyway, this allows you to write integration tests against your service directly, so you can make sure that everything is getting serialized across the wire, okay, and this lets you test more stuff in your project. These are some testing options that are available to you. If you really want to go crazy, take a look at the advanced GWT lecture. There I provide some interesting design patterns for making client-side code that is extremely testable, where you can use all sorts of cool mocks and stuff like that to develop that. But it really is advanced, and I think it's the kind of thing that, like, if after the course is over you want to go back and revisit, that's probably great. Just getting this much, I think, will be really great learning for the next 2 weeks for you guys. Okay, so you can test it. That's probably what I want you to take away from it most of all. Okay, now let's do something with this application. So, where was I? Yes. Okay, so I want to add both a button and a text box. Text box. Here, I want to. I might need to make it visible for testing later. Or should I be test driven? Nah, they're integration. Yeah, so things might break. I might break things, but you don't want us to be right test code. Although that might be kind of neat. Sure, let's do it. So here, no, not that one. Where is the other one? Ping service simple. Nope. Where was the other? Did I close it? Maybe I did. Okay. I want two things. I'm going to want to say the following. I'm going to want to say UI.textbox and really no make it package local so it can be tested. .set text. Yep. And then I want it to be the string 4, so I want it to create 4 appointment books. And then I'm going to have it run with 4. Oops, with 4 appointments, which is what I want there when I click the button. Can I run this from IntelliJ? Will it get it right? It might. Let me try it. It might not, though. I don't know. It's really slow, compared to like your normal unit test. It's got to do a lot of stuff. It's got to like start up the whole GWT runtime. As you can see, like launch this app main and everything like that. So these are, actually, it might be really awkward trying to do this test driven because we're not going to do that. Okay, excellent. You know what I should have done? I should have made sure that it worked. Null pointer exception. Ooh, that's kind of neat. I wonder why. Oh yeah, because of the. Okay, so let me fix that first. I will add widgets here, and then I'll say this .textbox equals new textbox. Do that. Then I'll run this really slowly. So, this is a good lesson in integration tests. So, for projects 1, 2, and 3, the integration tests were like that. For project 4, it was a little bit slower, but now here in project 5, it is super slow. Okay, great. Said assertion failed that with the string my owner's appointment with 1 appointments, and then it is. And so obviously that's wrong. So let's fix it. So what do we got to do? Now we're in the we're in the red. Let's make it green. So we create the text box, and we want to do the following. Okay. Let's play around with the UI a little bit first. We create the text box. We've added the text box. Let's reload the UI to see what it looks like. Recompile. It's got ping server and it's got text box right here. Okay, that's kind of neat. Now let's do something with that text box. So let's see here. When the when the button is clicked, I don't. It just doesn't ping the server anymore. I'm going to call this create appointments. Oops. And let's see here. I got to do a couple of things now. Just let's see here. Now ping. I don't want it to just ping anymore. I want to, and now I want my service to take the number of appointments. So number of appointments, and this is going to be get number of appointments. Let's create the method for right now. Oops. And now I need to send the number of appointments to by ping method. Okay, we're changing the service. There are lots of pieces parts here, but that's okay. This is what you'll need to do, right? Because your services will be doing more than just returning this canned set of appointments. So I'm going to add it here, and all sorts of things light up in red, such as what? Gosh, it's not even telling me because it's having problems. What it's it's probably telling me that there's the wrong number of appointments here, so wrong number of parameters. So let's see what autocorrect does. Add int as first method to ping. Sure, that's good. Number of appointments, great. Int, int, int. Yes, yes, yes. We're all happy. Please refactor. Okay, I just added that there. Let's see what happens when I run my test again. So I just made this change. I'm curious what's going to happen here. Oh, all sorts of things. Let's see here. It doesn't compile. It says method ping and interface ping service cannot be applied to given types. Required int found no arguments. Oh, that's right. Here in my test. Okay. I'm going to change this. Oh, wow, this is interesting. Okay, so now I need to change my service. So I'm going to say 5 appointments. And I will change this test now to say number of appointments is 5, and I will assert that the number of appointments is the size of that. And actually, let's see here. I can't run this quite yet. Can I? No, I can't. But that's okay. And let's see here. And here, oh, I do it again. And then let's do 6 here. Number of appointments. Okay, this is just the this is a JUnit test. So here we probably can implement it. Okay, so let's give this one a try. This is just a JUnit test. This one will fail. Yes, because it's 6 but always got 1. Okay, so let's go and fix this guy now. So now my ping service. Okay, so notice when I refactored something, I think it's when I added that parameter, IntelliJ was smart enough to put it on not only the async interface I added it to, but also to the regular ping service. Crazy, but that was the point. Remember, all these, the 2 interfaces and the servlet and the rote service implementation are all connected, and IntelliJ is smart enough to know all of this. So now I have number of appointments, and now here I just need to do for int I equals 0, while I is less than number of appointments, I plus plus. I will add an appointment here. Okay, things are happier. So now let me run this again. So I implemented on the the server side. On the client side, things are a little happier now. That's interesting. Let's see here. All right, that was the test I just ran. That's cool. This integration test, though, let's see where we're at. Oh, it passed? Wait, no, I didn't click the right thing. Yeah, there you go. Okay, it's thinking about it. It's thinking about it. My owner's appointment book was 0 appointments. Why is it 0? Get number of appointments. Return 0. Okay, so let's walk where we're at now. So I just implemented, with actually more help from IntelliJ than I was expecting, I just added this argument to the ping method, and like all this magic happened, and then it updated both the async interface and the service implementation on the server side. I used my my unit test for the ping service impl to then verify that yes, when I ask it, when I ping, and actually, okay, here's something. And when I ping it with 6 appointments, it creates an appointment book with 6 appointments. I don't like the name of this method anymore, so I'm going to rename this method. I'm going to call it rename base method. Yes, I'll do it on the interface. I'm going to call it create appointment book with number of appointments. And let's see here. Did that also flow all the way through back to here? It did. Good. IntelliJ is really smart with GWT. It knows that all these methods are connected. And so this makes more sense now. Okay. And so now this is still going to blow up. Actually, yeah, this is still going to blow up because get number of appointments returns 0. So where do I get the number of appointments from? I get the number of appointments from this text box. So how do I get the contents of that text box? String number equals this dot text box dot get text. And then I'm going to do the following. I know I need a number. So I'm going to say, well, I'm going to say now return integer dot parseInt number. Integer.parseInt is one of those methods, was one of those APIs that is supported in JavaScript mode, right? This is client-side code, has to be supported in JavaScript. So now let's run that integration test again and see what we got. Pardon me. Very slowly. Ooh, it's green. Let's take a look at what it did again. So here's our test. We created the appointment book, we created our UI object, and we set the text of that text box to 4. Then we clicked on the UI button, and then basically our test was the same thing, but we had said, hey, instead of looking for 1 appointment, look for 4 appointments. So those tests are passing. Our UI is implemented. Let's see what happens. Let's see, I changed this, and so then I should reload. Okay, so it's compiling stuff. Ping the server. Let's create something with 8 appointments and see what happens. Incompatible remote service exception. The application is out of date. Please click the refresh button in your browser, which I could, and it said, oh, that's a nice error message. Could not locate requested method create appointment book server int in interface ping service. What do you think is going on? The client and the server are out of sync. I made lots of changes to the client code, and GWT development mode knows how to recompile the JavaScript. What it doesn't know how to do, apparently, is recompile the server-side code. So I don't know if I can do that here. I can say restart server. I wonder if that's going to recompile the the source code. It may not. I might have to restart GWT mode again. Oh, it did. Okay, nice. Okay, so you see how just like in your REST application, things can get out of sync, right? I think we saw this like last week when we were working through the REST project. I was sitting there, making changes to the client and stuff like that, and I made changes in IntelliJ. And when I ran the unit test, everything was happy in IntelliJ. But then I had this long-running server process that needed to be updated. Anyway, neat. Let's see here. Let's put this in the background. Well, actually, no. Let's quit out of that. We'll quit out of development mode because now I want to know if my Maven works. So, right, one of the things I always do before I check in is I see if it works for Maven. So, clean verify does what clean verify does. It blows away all the artifacts, and now we get to actually see GWT compiling. So it went through and compiled all the Java source code into class files. It ran the unit tests, just like it would for any Java application. But this Maven project is configured to do GWT stuff. And so now it's compiling GWT. And that means converting the client-side Java code into JavaScript. And so it's doing its thing. Everything was successful. It's doing more Maven-y things. Now it's running the integration tests. So it starts up a Jetty server and runs some tests, and then it uses the and that's when it runs. I think it runs. Yeah, it runs the that sync proxy test, and then it goes and it runs the GWT test case, which is that code that we wrote that actually will create the UI object and set the fields and click the button and stuff like that, and everything's successful. Yay! Neat. So let's see here. So what did we see here? We using test-driven development, we were able to augment our test a little bit by adding this field. Then we had to go through and implement the program logic to handle that, to create that field, put it in the UI, and then deal with it. So when the button is clicked, we then had to reference that field, get the value out of it, convert it to a number, and then send it to our. Maybe I should be looking at the code while I'm talking about this. And then send it to our remote object. We changed the name of it to make it more understandable. We added a parameter to it. IntelliJ was nice enough to propagate that throughout, and then it was just a matter of implementing it, which we could verify with this ping service impl test. So what did we do here again? Added a text field that specifies the number of appointments to create. We also modified the test to validate this functionality. Neat. One more thing I want to show you. I'm sorry, questions on that? Yes?
I think I missed where you actually added 8 appointments to the appointment. Can you show that one?
Yeah, yes. Yes, I wrote all these tests and all the Java code works, and so actually I need to validate in the UI. So we'll do 7 here. So I enter 7 in this text field. I click on the ping service, so I click the button. And now when I click the button, oops. Oh yeah, I'm not running. That would do it. Sorry. Okay, so 7 appointments. Enter in the 7 there, click the button. Clicking the button now reads the value out of that text field, that text box, sends it to the service, and what I get back is an appointment book that contains 7 appointments.
I just wondered where that code is.
Where the
Where you added
yes, okay, thank you. No, that's a very important detail. I added that code in the ping service impl on the back end. So this is that service implementation is the code that resides on the back end. When I refactored it, I added this number of appointments parameter. I went through I equals 0 to number of appointments and added an appointment each time. Yep, so very important detail. Once again, there's lots of pieces, parts, but I guess one of the nice things with the tests is that you can develop them separately. So I like to go front to back. I like to start with my UI and then sort of build it back there. But you can also, if you sort of know I need to add a number of appointments to my service. You can start with the service and work your way forward. You can do that too and test along the way. Yes.
So you just refactored the ping method to be add appointments.
Yep.
If you had wanted to create a new method instead, is that just as simple as putting a new method in the server class?
Putting a new method in the server class. Putting a new method on the service interface. So it would be another, well, yes. put and essentially when you rename it, that's what it does, right? So yeah, so you need to put the it needs to be here. Well, yes, it needs to be here in the implementation. It needs to override a method in the interface, and then when you nope, there used to be a way to navigate to the impl. Maybe there's not anymore. Then on the async, you would need to create the async version of the method, which takes the parameters and then the last parameters of the service method, and then the last one is an async callback that has a return type that is parameterized with the return type of the corresponding service method.
So this, earlier you were discouraging changing the URI routes, not
Yeah.
the method.
We can give it a try here. Yeah. So yeah, the method, the method. IntelliJ will sort of take care of that. This is Java code. Yep.
Probably isn't smart enough to change all of the routes and all of the XML.
We can find out. Yeah, let's give it a try. So if I change this to, so like let's say I rename this to appointment book service. What is it telling me? Oh yeah, I want to rename the impl class. Yeah, sure, I can do that. And now it's saying, oh, there's a test. Yeah, sure, I can rename that too. Okay, let's see what's changed. It changed the name of this. Oh, look, it changed. It was smart enough to know that this thing needed to change here. So renaming the class. Okay, this seems pretty reasonable. All sorts of. Oh, it changed it in the web.xml. Yep, right here. Okay, well that's pretty good. Okay, so we'll let's quit out of dev mode. Let's do our clean verify. Let's see if this one works. So we'll change the name of the class first, and then we'll see if it's smart enough to do the URL. So while some parts of GWT development can be very rapid, right? I changed the client-side code to hit refresh and all that stuff. Other times you need to take a step back and sort of do that sanity check, especially if you're writing tests. Like, do all my tests pass? Can everything work from Maven? Because I'm going to grade it from Maven. I'm not going to run dev mode, right? So you need to make sure all this works. So far, so good. Okay, here's sort of the real test where it is doing stuff like that. I think it'll be okay. This is probably the pretty easy one. Okay, okay, that was good. Let's run it in dev mode to see if it works. It probably will. Reload, compiling. Do the compilation dance. Give me one with 9. Pretty good. Okay, so that seems to work. So let's commit that. So you can rename your service to be something reasonable. Rename service to be something reasonable. So we know that all works. Here again, I'm committing off so that I know it's like I've got something working. I'll commit it. So then if I break it, I can just revert back to something working. The next thing we'll do is we will change that. IntelliJ doesn't seem that smart. Okay, so I don't know. Look for ping. Oh, all over the place. Oh, it's ping URL. That's not a big. Okay, that's something special. Ping timeout. Really? Oh no, wait a second. That's why. 3 too large files. What are the too large? Oh, probably some like crazy JavaScript or whatever. Okay, so let's So find. Oops, there it was. Okay, so that one, it's in the POM, probably not too interesting. POM, remove all mappings. Oh, this is like including other stuff too. Sorry. Not whole project, module, appointment book GWT. We'll try that again. Okay, Here, okay, this is not a big deal. It's just Java code, so service, sure. Not a big deal there. Ping returns, okay, so here again, service returns expected airline, no big deal there. Comment, who cares? This is probably interesting. Appointments, that's what I called it. Ping URL, ping, here's another place, appointments. Ping service. Oh, look, it's telling me that this is red, so that's kind of nice. We'll just rename this ping servlet to call it appointment servlet. And then this is appointments, I think. No. Appointments. Shoot. Appointments. It recognizes it now. It's happy. That's cool. And invalid, invalid, invalid. And one more place. And this is where I always hope I get it right. So we'll try once more. We'll quit. Oh, no. We'll quit out of this thing. We'll run our clean verify again. So remember, I push all my stuff to GitHub, and so then, if instead of starting with an archetype, if you want to fork this project and start with it, it might give you a better starting place, honestly, right? Because I've gone and renamed everything. Feel free to do that. So we know that it works from the archetype, and if you want to grab this source code and start there too, that is totally cool, right? Any of the code that I give you is fair use. Okay, so that was happy. Now we'll run GWT mode again, as in GWT dev mode. And then go back here, and we'll reload, and it'll compile. And now we'll try it with 4 ping server, and it looks happy. Okay, so I think I got it right. And so we'll say here, and we'll just say changed URL to be, well, service URL. Service URL to be /appointments instead of /ping. I should probably update the archetype, just call this stuff appointments in the first place. That ping and sort of left over from a couple of iterations back. Okay. One last thing I want to show you before break. Okay, so look at this URI. Look at this. Look at this web page. It's kind of ugly. Actually, I guess it's kind of interesting. You've got the two things right next to each other. The way we've added it, they're right up against each other. When you want to make your UI look better, you need to use layout objects. And so then let's go back to the, it's huge. Okay. Yeah, crap, where is it? Let's go back to the main class here. When I just add them directly to the root panel, and that's just going to put one after another, after another, after another. You probably want to have something that looks more like a form, where you've got labels and text fields and stuff like that. Actually, I should do that. So here, I could do root panel.add, new label, and I can just have it, number of appointments. Number of appointments. Reload. Oh, interesting. It puts it on a separate line. Well, that's not really what I want, right? I want the number of. I want that thing to be on the same line as the as the text field. So how can I do that? I want to put those two like in next to each other, and so I want to have a container. And on the left of the container, I want to have that label number of appointments. On the right, I want to have the text field. So how do I do that? I create something called a doc layout panel. I'm going to call it a new doc layout panel. What does it take? Unit? No, that's not. Shoot. That's not what I wanted. Or is it? No, that's not what I want. I am completely blanking on the name of this. So now it's time to look at the GWT Java docs. Pardon me. So lots of good API docs. We want GWT user client layout layout client. Sure. No, that's not it. Why am I blanking on the names of these? I thought they were all in this package, but I guess not. Sorry, guys. No, not get GWT. Oh, right, they're panels. Okay. I think what I want is DocPanel, not doc layout. Yeah, okay. Whew, sorry. DocPanel is a container that lets you have different regions. So you can say, here's what's in the north, here's what in the east, the south, and the west, and the center. So what I want to do is the following. I want to say DocPanel panel equals new DocPanel. And here I want to say, instead of rootPanel.add of the new label, I want to say panel.add, and I want to add this widget here. And I want to add it in the doc layout constant dot, oops. Huffed. Oh, what? Oh, there it is. Sorry, it's on DocPanel dot. There we go. That'd be west. Will be the right, the left. And then I want to say panel.add that text box. Text box. And then DocPanel dot center. There, and now what I want to add to the root panel is that panel there. And now, if I go back to this tab and I reload, now it's next to it. See the lecture for more details. We'll see it again next week. But I want to reiterate, there are sort of 3 steps to building your UI in GWT. 1, create your widgets. So create the button, create the text box. Number 2, hook up all your event listeners. And number 3, lay them out. So ultimately you add them to the root panel or a container within the root panel. The containers are things like that doc layout that will a DocPanel that will lay them out in specific ways and see the lecture notes or the GWT documentation for all the different kinds of layout patterns and algorithms that are available to GWT via these different kinds of objects. Okay, another hour has gone by. I'm getting kind of tired, so I'm done talking for tonight. Let's take a couple of minutes. Anybody who's still interested and wants to stick around to do a little bit of code kata, our guests would appreciate it to get some pictures anyway. So do the pose or the or whatever, and then you can skedaddle if you want. I'm going to work on mine for a little bit longer because we'll see it next week. Anyway, so let's take a break, come back, and we'll do a little bit of code kata.
Finished the project earlier today for forum.
Okay.
But, so let's see. So if we were talking about earlier.